between Turner and a Tim Howard. I thought Turner did everything that could be asked of him. As I mentioned, had absolutely no chance with the penalty. But Tim Howard, as a presence 8 years ago, was indescribable and invaluable to the US team. And it's unfair to draw that comparison between the two, Turner and Tim Howard. But yes, absolutely. LME's absolutely right. It's a miss. It's a miss having somebody who understands and recognizes and commands the kind of respect and authority that Tim Howard did some 8 years ago. I'll also add, and while we are breaking down the fine points of this game, what went right, what didn't, and everything in between, first games of a tournament always have a different personality about them. It takes a different approach. It's more important that you don't lose it than you go on and win it. So while both these teams maybe are thinking it could have been so much better for us, we both have to recognize it could have been so much worse. And you're still in this. Right now, England are favorites. England were favorites before a ball was kicked. That hasn't changed after a day's action. It all comes down to what happens in the next two games. And for the US in particular, you've got England next. Two yellow cards, picks up a suspension. The US have had 4 players booked today in what you expect will be a tough game against England. All of a sudden, that 2 booking threshold comes into play because you don't want some of those big players, some of those big personalities not being available for Berhalter against Iran.
Oh, it's going to be so good, that game now, though, as well, especially with the way it's poised. We've got some messages coming in, and we encourage you to send your questions in if you're watching along with us live. One of them is, would you rather see Pulisic come off the bench instead of starting? I'll start with you, Luis. What about you?
Good question, whoever said that. I think it depends on the opponent, because it's dependent on what the opponent brings to the table. Let's say we're talking about England, right? The next opponent for the USMNT. And think about the dangers that is offered from the fullback position. And if we think to what England did today with a flat back 4, Luke Shaw on one side, of course, delivering that great cross, for the first opening goal for Jude Bellingham, of course, and Kieran Trippier on the other side. These are very attack-minded fullbacks. Pulisic knows the Premier League well, so there is to be said that. So Greg Berhalter has a decision to make. Do I put in Pulisic and give him 60 minutes, you give me everything you have, or do I reverse that with Brenden Aaronson? It's a good problem to have. For England, I'm going to tell you something. I would start Brenden Aaronson. I just think that at this moment, Brenden Aaronson can give you that and then some. And no matter what you think of Pulisic, regardless, you still have that option of the bench. I worry a little bit about Pulisic when things are not going his way and the ball's not coming to him that much, he could get lost. And obviously, the England national team setup knows very well on that player. So I would opt for Brenden Aaronson. I know it's not going to happen. Berhalter will still start Pulisic, but it's a good problem to have. Either start him for 60 or give him 20 minutes to shine.
Oh,
that's an interesting take. I have to say, up to me, I play Christian Pulisic all game, every game. If you're winning comfortably and you could afford to rest him, then so be it. But as long as it's tight, I don't think that the US has a bigger personality to call on than Christian Pulisic.
One point, sorry, Shad, to add, Kay, I think it also depends on the formation because, sometimes maybe what if we see, if you start your Sargent once again, and instead of having Pulisic so close to the width or maybe dropping the midfield, what if you do a sort of 4-4-1-1 situation where Pulisic is now driving as a false 9? Because he can be also very good at that. So it also depends on the formation as well. It's going to be very interesting to see what they do against England. And to Shaka's point, there's a lot of yellow cards here, specifically Weston McKennie and the like. And that's going to be a massive thing. So they're going to have to be very careful in this one. Kay, let me ask you this. Who in this USMNT side can you afford to drop for the England team and replace with somebody else?
I don't know, because I don't know what message that's sending either. If you're going to drop a player after this. So I'm not sure who you can afford to drop, unless he's spoken to them all beforehand, because maybe there were some surprises in there for us. There's maybe some fitness issues as well, as we were all well aware of. 2 players in there today who hadn't even played in the calendar year for the US, but obviously have for their for the domestic sides. So I don't know if I would even answer that, because I don't know what message it would send. And I'm going to be interested to hear what Greg Berhalter has to say after this game.
Thank you very much for watching ESPN FC on YouTube. For more highlights, analysis and exclusive content, be sure to subscribe.